Welcome to another episode of Banking on Air, the Vacuum Lab podcast on fintech banking, cryptocurrencies, and how they're sweeping the world and changing everything in this crazy post-COVID world of 2021. Today, I'm really excited to have one of the software engineers at Emorgo on the call with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. So before we kick in all the difficult questions, can you give me a bit of a background into how you ended up at Emorgo and where you come from?
Yeah, well, my name is Vicente. I'm originally from Chile, but living in France right now for several years now. So I'm a software engineer with Emorgo, working on the Cardano R&D team. I started working on crypto back in early 2017, but that time I was actually hoping to become a satellite communications engineer. But as I was finishing my PhD thesis, I was feeling very curious about crypto. Since then, I just been working on full time on this.
Perfect. Software engineer from a satellite engineer. So that's a big shift, right, into crypto. I guess it's still programming, right?
There is still programming, yeah, but different kind of programming, a lot of MATLAB, low-level programming as well, like, C, stuff like that, but not much in common with protocols.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole world of crypto, with real value being held in cryptocurrencies, it's really the future. And working on real satellites now into the virtual world, it's an interesting shift. So let me just jump to the question, which is probably on a lot of people's minds and very pertinent. You work at Emorgo. So for those who haven't ever heard of Emorgo for whatever reason, how does it fit into the entire blockchain ecosystem? How would you introduce to somebody who hasn't ever heard of Emorgo and what you do there?
Okay, so Emorgo is part of three main companies that are behind the Cardano blockchain since the beginning, since the genesis. The others being the Cardano Foundation, IOG, previously called IOHK, or input-output. So we are generally known as the commercial arm of Cardano. We are focused mainly on increasing the overall value of the Cardano ecosystem. We have a business branch that is more oriented to enterprise solutions, mainly in the supply chain sector, and another branch which is more focused on development of products in the Cardano blockchain itself. And that's the unit I work on specifically. One of the projects that we develop here in Emorgo in the Cardano branch is the Yoroi wallet. It is a light wallet in the sense that it does not require users to download the whole blockchain and synchronize with it. So this way we can develop Yoroi, a multi-platform application that can be easily maintained in browser, for instance, as a native application in iOS and Android. Also, we have another branch which is about training. It's called Ergo Academy, and it's been working on India for a couple of years now.
Yeah, so if I recall correctly, our journeys as Vacuum Labs and Emorgo really kicked off and became official with this app, right? And people can read about it a little bit more, but can you tell me a bit more about how Yoroi got started, your role in it, and how it has changed over time as we were developing it together?
Yeah, as you know, Yoroi was one of the earliest collaborations between Emorgo and Vacuum. But for me, it has some sort of special meaning because by the time I joined, I didn't have much experience, regarding wallet design, all the intricacies that are behind it. I joined, I think, a couple of months after the first major version of Yoroi was released. So I learned a lot actually by reading code that was written by engineers from Vacuum, basically. And as I was reviewing the code, and being familiar with it and adding more features, improving some details, I soon understood why Emorgo decided to work with you guys. I thought yeah, these people know what they are doing. You quickly realize that building a wallet is not something that can be done by a random team of developers, especially in the early days of Cardano. And considering all the constraints that you have in a distributed system like a blockchain, you need experienced, skilled people with a deep understanding of the complete stack of technologies involved, but also with a lot of experience in security, things that have to do with everything you have in financial applications in general. So when I took the lead of Yoroi Mobile, I was already starting on a very good foundations, thanks to especially the collaboration that we had with Vacuum. From then, we've been, in constant communication with engineers from Vacuum, especially to discuss new features that come into the protocol that may impact our wallet services.
Okay. So to reveal a bit of the sort of secret sauce that went into creating the Yoroi wallet, what would you say were some very specific design patterns or approaches that you chose that others can learn from for another blockchain or in general in different financial services in the future? What are things that sort of surprised you that you really learned a lot about?
Yeah, the first thing that you need to know when you're building something on top of a blockchain is that you don't have a traditional backend system. You need a way to interact with the blockchain, of course, which requires a backend, but you don't have like a regular database where you can store user information, for instance, or, there are a lot of things that traditional applications can handle through a backend. We don't have that. We only have the blockchain and the information that is publicly available in the blockchain. One of the tricky things about it is that you need to think about, for instance, concurrent processes that are happening in the blockchain. You may, for instance, want to send a transaction through the wallet, but at the same time, you can have like a transaction incoming to your wallet, which will change your balance and the state of your account. So you have to think about many things that are happening in parallel because it's a distributed system in nature.
Yeah, I mean, those are very good points because right now, speaking of all these distributed systems, it feels to me like we're now finally moving into that era of everything being in the cloud, on the internet, and everything just connected in through some sort of light clients. And it really doesn't matter where the servers are and how the data is held. It's now all in the blockchain. Would you say that blockchain applications are building this very light, internet heavy, cloud heavy future? Or is this just one of the patterns that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think there are different approaches to this. For instance, in the Cardano network, we have another wallet which is called Daedalus. Daedalus actually downloads the full blockchain into your computer. That is a different approach in the sense that you make sure that all the transactions are actually being processed inside your computer and have different security properties as well. But I think that there's space for different kind of solutions. Users will have different requirements. Some people will want to have, like a full node operating in their computers, while other people will prefer to have a light wallet on their phones because they only have a phone, for instance. So it's super important to have to cover all the different spaces in terms of requirements.
Yeah, so it's exactly like when we speak with our clients and they ask us, is this the right approach? And we say, it depends on the case, right? This is the current situation, even with the way you approach designing blockchain applications.
Yeah, but there's no a single approach, or it's not like we are converting into a single view of things in general in the things.
Great. So moving beyond Yoroi, are you also involved in other projects in Emorgo that Vacuum Labs has either been involved with or that you're really passionate about?
In terms of our collaboration with Vacuum, they actually typically work on maintaining code related to hardware wallets. Hardware wallets are something that we support in all our Yoroi products. For people who don't know about hardware wallets, these are perhaps the more advanced and secure way to store and manage your digital assets. They are very easy to set up. You can use them with both the Yoroi extension and Yoroi mobile. This is part of the critical infrastructure that is developed by Vacuum. Yeah, we are constantly communicating with people from Vacuum, to coordinate new updates to these code bases. Me in particular, I'm not involved in other projects apart from Yoroi, but I'm very active also in the community, watching what are the new initiatives that are starting to pop up. Yeah, and try to give a hand to developers that are jumping in right now.
Absolutely. So let me give you a difficult question this time. Well, maybe difficult. So what's the actual state of the software infrastructure today? Is there something that's really limiting you? Or is it just really about taking the time to build it? Is there something that's really coming up in the future that you wouldn't mind sharing with me today?
Of course. We can actually observe right now is that it's getting more and more mature, that it's evolving faster and faster. 1 year ago, for instance, we were just testing the Shelly protocol, and it's improved proof of stake consensus algorithm only in a testnet network, in a testnet environment. Right now, we have Shelly totally integrated in mainnet, as well as support for native assets, on-chain metadata, and a new variety of projects that are popping up and that are being funded by Catalyst. For people who don't know about Catalyst, it's actually a platform in which anybody can submit a proposal for, it could be an application, a new standard, it could be a DAO, several things.
Yep.
Anybody that actually is a Yoroi user or a user of other Cardano wallets can vote on these proposals. Thanks to that, things have been evolving very fast in the last weeks or months. Just a month ago, people were barely figuring out how to play with native assets. But right now, there are multiple community tools for minting new assets, for minting NFTs based on-chain metadata. These NFTs are already being traded somehow in the community and acquiring value as we speak, actually.
Yep.
But the main block right now is that we don't have support for smart contracts, as you may know. That means that we can have, for instance, like a decentralized exchange or many of the decentralized finance primitives that we have in blockchains like Ethereum, for instance, decentralized lending and borrowing, decentralized margin trading, and stuff like that. But the good thing is that we know how it will work. We have many, playgrounds, testnet environments to test how smart contracts will actually work on Cardano. We also have a date for the next hard fork, which will bring smart contracts into Cardano. It's going to be in August this year. Also, you can see that there are more and more developers jumping in and starting to design dApps, proposing dApps in Catalyst. So I really hope that by the time we have Alonso released, the ecosystem will be quite ready with many applications ready to be launched.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Anytime there's a date attached to something, that's when you really get excited about things. That's really when you start dreading as that release date comes closer and closer, and you're really having to make all the right decisions and put other things on the roadmap for the future. Can you reveal something that's on the roadmap coming up soon?
Yes. Well, about Emurgo, one of the main things we've been pushing for is a Dab connector. We released the Ergo Dab Connector. So for people who haven't heard about Ergo, Ergo is another blockchain, but it actually shares many traits with Cardano. For instance, it's also based on extended UTXO model, and it also have a similar approach for smart contracts. So basically, they also use like a functional approach for coding smart contracts. The idea behind this collaboration with Ergo was that we could start to test these kind of features that we will have eventually in Cardano before in an environment that has many similarities with Cardano. In the roadmap, the idea is to have the same functionality actually for Cardano. As you may know, we have many users, as you also have in Adelaide. We've been increasing like dramatically in the last few months. So it's natural for the users to expect that the current wallets will provide a way to interact with smart contracts once they're out there. So that's the main thing we are working on right now. There's also a collaboration for building a stablecoin. I don't know if you've heard about that. It's called HUSD. It's a protocol-based stablecoin in the sense that we don't need to back it up with actual dollars, but there is instead protocol mechanism that is running on smart contracts to keep the peg with respect to the dollar.
To the dollar.
Yeah. So this project involved a lot of research regarding Oracle pools, because we need to have some information about what's happening outside the blockchain. And for that, we need some very robust system that cannot be tricked. And also we've been, researching about stabilization mechanisms. And the thing is that in the context of Cardano, it's a UTXO-based blockchain. So much of the things that have been already tested on Ethereum, for instance, won't work here. So we need to come up with new stuff, basically.
So I guess one of the ways of looking at it is that you're establishing the railroads of the future, right? You're fueling the growth and establishing the infrastructure for others to thrive. And with cryptocurrencies like ADA in particular, and if you owned some ADA back in December, you're probably significantly more happier today than you were back then, right? So we're seeing this very explosive growth recently. So what do you think is driving this? Is this COVID? Is this just digitalization in general? What's driving this growth?
Yeah, that's a very good and tough question because, yeah, you can view it in many different ways. But yeah, apart from the fact that many people are currently seeing cryptocurrencies are as hedge for their portfolios in general, I also think that there's been some sort of overall validation about what cryptocurrencies can achieve in general, not only for financial applications, but also in many aspects of society, many industrial applications. So yeah, apart from that, I think that there's this validation. There's a lot more capital coming into cryptocurrencies in general, not only into Cardano. But once we had, this interest from traditional investors, in general, they start to look into other alternatives. I think that the natural way of reasoning here is to start to take a look into what are those projects that actually provide real innovation in this space. What are those projects that are actually backed by highly professional companies? All those projects that have like a clear vision for the future, projects that have a secure and decentralized network, which is, in my opinion, like the most important things when we talk about public blockchains. Also the community and so on. So I guess that after the Shelly hard fork last year, we started to see interest in Cardano growing faster and faster. So here I think that Emurgo and Vacuum have been playing an important role. Actually, we built the infrastructure that helps onboarding new users, to set up a wallet like very easily and quick. Those are, in my opinion, critical part of the infrastructure. And that's why, we need companies with the professionalism that Vacuum and Emurgo provides in this area.
So is there something that makes us different from the rest in the fintech industry?
Yeah, interesting question, in my opinion. When you think about it, for instance, if you download an app for your bank, you trust the application because you trust your bank, but you have no clue about who actually wrote the code. So you just trust that your bank the good decisions. And in crypto, this is totally different because in order for all the decentralization narrative to make sense, you need the code to be open source in general. So all the main applications, like the nodes, the wallets, etc., are in general open source. Ergo, most of what we, Emurgo and Vacuum, do is open source, and you can see exactly who was the developer that did this bit or that bit of the code. And it's a completely different process, I guess, regarding, more traditional companies in the financial sector.
You can always run git blame on somebody, right?
Yeah, we are a bit exposed, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess you can also look at who did the pull request check and blame them as well if you want, right? But, it's really not a blaming game, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you can also start, like knowing who are actually the people behind it. Yeah. And it's not only about the name of the company, but it's also about, the individuals that are part of these companies,
Absolutely. So it is much more, and I would say much more transparent when you're building out infrastructure in this open way, because the trust is really important there. You can see the community who is building that software, and it isn't just a piece of code built by some institution somewhere. It's actually something that is much more open and makes the financial services of the future much more open and at the same time anonymized, which really is a bit of a paradox, right? But it is quite unique. Even if you look at the world through the perspective of, say, the editors of Wikipedia, the fact that there were contributors that really created the biggest and most interesting broad encyclopedia in the world, whereas before that you had, Encyclopedia Britannica, which had, I guess, hundreds of employees, and now it's crowdsourced in this open fashion, which is fairly unique in the history of the world. And I'm really just excited about where all of the sort of commercial interests and open interests of the world lie. And, as we get into the crypto world and the blockchain world, we start talking about the NFTs, which are really cool right now, and everybody's talking about them. And they'll, find their place in the economy and the world at large, right? So I think it's just, in general, it's all converging towards something that will eventually be much more open and outright very cool, because that your daily job as you're doing this is constantly evolving as you discover new ways of working with these completely new technologies that didn't exist just a few years ago. So is there something that really interests you right now, something that's really keeping you excited and that you would like to share with us here?
Yeah, good question, because there are many things that are interesting in the space, but personally, and I think that here I'm very different compared to, the average developer or crypto enthusiast, in the sense that I would like to see blockchain helping to fight problems like climate change, actually. The problem is that we are also part of the problem, especially with proof of work chains. That's not the case for Cardano. That's good news, at least.
Yeah.
But I think that the problem with climate change in general is a coordination problem, and blockchains help to solve coordination problems. So for me, it seems kind of natural that we'll end up using these kind of technologies to help, for instance, I don't know, in improving the efficiency of carbon markets, stuff like that. But I think that we are still in an early stage. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's going to come in the future.
Absolutely.
But regarding more fun stuff like DeFi, NFTs and so on, I'm actually, of course, super bullish in everything that is about providing financial services to those who don't have access to basic stuff like lending, borrowing, and the minimum stuff that you need to build a business in general. This is something critical to develop in poor countries. And I think that Cardano is heading in that direction, which is one of the things I like about it. So probably it's going to be one of the things I would like to work on in the future.
So to finish us off, and I know you're a very, very busy man, let me give you a very simple question. If you had to go back to your hometown and put up a billboard, what would you put on it? What would you want to say to the world that you've learned and that you want others to know about? What would you like to teach through a single billboard?
There are two things that come to my mind. The first one is that you eventually learn that you don't need to be like the smartest guy to build meaningful things in life. Could be code, or it could be, I don't know, a service, a company. You could work in the public sector, whatever. But it's mostly about hard work. I don't know how I would put that in a phrase, but I could probably try to figure out something about that. A few days ago, I was just listening to some video about, Steve Jobs talking about something similar. And he said like something about the moment you realize that the world is built by people who is no smarter than you, then everything changes. So something like that could be a good phrase for a billboard.
So don't be the smartest. You don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. You just need to put in the hard work and actually confront problems in a meaningful way. I love it.
Yeah, it's about that, and believing yourself. Realizing that people are no better than you because, they come from richer countries or richer families.
It is a very positive message, and I thank you for it today. Thank you for coming on the podcast. And if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they find you?
For me, I'm active in Twitter. It's V_Almonacid. It's going to be probably difficult to spell, but...
Don't worry, everyone. If you're listening to this, we're going to put this in the description and you're going to see it there. You can go straight to the Twitter profile.
Yeah, you'll find me on Twitter. There's also the Emurgo website, emurgo.io. We also have a Discord for Cardano. There are channels for Yoroi. If you have questions about Yoroi, you can go there. I'm also on Telegram. It's not difficult to find us.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a really fun conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And Is there something you want to leave us with? Is there something I should have asked and didn't ask?
Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Yeah, let's keep this collaboration together.
Absolutely. We're very excited about what we're building together. So thank you so much. And hopefully we can get to meet in person after all this COVID stuff passes through. And you can meet us right in our new offices. It will be lots of fun. I guarantee it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you liked the episode, please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, review, download, or share it. My name is Marcel Klimo, and I'm from Vacuum Labs, and we'll be back soon with another episode that will give you new insights into digital banking.